Before hip-hop had sponsors, stages, and stadium lights, it had concrete. Before it had contracts, it had corners. And before it had permission, it had movement. In the early days, dance was not about fame. It was about being visible in a world that looked past you. It was how young people spoke when no one wanted to listen. On the West Coast, a new kind of motion began to form. Sharp stops, sudden freezes, a rhythm that felt mechanical but emotional at the same time. It looked impossible, and that was the point. This was not choreography taught in mirrors. It was learned by watching, copying, failing, and trying again. Night after night, block after block, one dancer stood out, not because he moved the loudest, but because he understood something early. If you control the movement, you control the story. He would take what the streets created and carry it somewhere no one expected. Onto television screens, into movie theaters, across the world. But long before the world applauded, he was just another kid trying to stay alive, choosing dance instead of violence, creativity instead of chaos. How did that choice change everything? How did street dance survive long enough to become history? And why does his influence still show up every time hip-hop moves? This is the story behind the movement, and the man who refused to let it disappear. Before the cameras, before the stages, there was a neighborhood that demanded quick decisions. He grew up in Chicago, a city that could teach you lessons before you were ready to learn them. His home life was quiet but firm. His father was gone early, leaving his mother to raise him and his sister on her own. Faith played a role in the household, but survival played a bigger one. Outside the front door, danger was ordinary. Violence was familiar. And for many young boys, the streets decided their future long before they did. He refused to let that happen. From a very young age, movement became his escape. Not performance. Escape. While other kids fought to prove toughness, he danced to prove existence. At family gatherings, people cleared space for him without being asked. They laughed. They clapped. They saw something special, even if they did not yet understand it. He studied performers who knew how to command attention without saying a word. James Brown taught him precision. Cab Calloway taught him control. Fred Astaire taught him grace. Jackie Wilson taught him urgency. Each influence added a layer. But the streets shaped the core. He learned early that creativity could keep you alive. Instead of throwing punches, he challenged rivals to dance. Battles replaced beatdowns. Respect replaced retaliation. Still, Chicago was tightening its grip. By his mid-teens, crime had reached a level his mother could no longer ignore. The decision was not easy, but it was necessary. They left for Los Angeles. The move changed everything. Los Angeles felt louder, brighter, and freer. The clothes were bolder. The music hit harder. And the dance culture was evolving right in front of him. But freedom came with shock. At 16, he was no longer the standout. He was just another kid trying to find his place in a city full of talent. That realization did not break him. It sharpened him. Then came one reckless night that would rewrite his life. A borrowed car. A college campus. A dance competition meant for someone else. That night, he saw a style of movement that stopped him cold. Sharp freezes. Sudden pauses. Confident rhythm. It felt mechanical, but it breathed. This was locking. In that moment, he made a choice. Not to copy, but to learn. He asked questions. He practiced until exhaustion. He absorbed the culture behind the movement, not just the steps. What began as curiosity became discipline, and discipline became direction. Without knowing it, he had just chosen a path that would carry street dance into history. Los Angeles rewards confidence, but it demands proof. For him, proof came through movement. What started as quiet practice quickly turned into recognition. Word spread in small circles first, then larger ones. Soon, the places where dancers gathered began to feel his presence before he arrived. The real breakthrough came on television. Soul Train was not just a program. It was a cultural mirror. If you appeared there, you existed to millions of black families across America. When he stepped onto that floor, the difference was immediate. This was not refined choreography borrowed from studios. This was street intelligence. Sharp stops, clean timing, confidence without arrogance. Viewers noticed. So did other dancers. He was soon surrounded by innovators who spoke the same language of movement. Together, they formed something new. The Lockers were not just dancers. They were characters. Each one had a distinct personality, a visual identity, and a way of moving that felt alive. They turned dance into performance art. Bright clothes, exaggerated gestures, precision mixed with humor. Audiences loved it. Ratings climbed. The dancers became the heartbeat of the show. But behind the scenes, reality looked different. The exposure was massive. The pay was not. When the group asked for fair compensation, the answer was silence. Then dismissal. Don Cornelius removed them from the show entirely. It was a harsh lesson in how talent and power do not always meet evenly. For many, that would have been the end. Instead, it became leverage. A woman with deep industry knowledge recognized what others missed. Toni Basil stepped in with structure, professionalism, and connections. She understood television, contracts, longevity. Under her guidance, the Lockers transformed from television favorites into global performers. They appeared everywhere. Saturday Night Live, The Carol Burnett Show, The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, commercials, concerts, international tours. Street dance had officially crossed into mainstream America. At the center stood him, focused, adaptive, quietly dominant. But success brings pressure. Creative differences surfaced. Egos grew. Visions no longer aligned. When the group eventually fractured, each member faced a choice. Chase familiarity or evolve. He chose evolution. He understood something crucial. Fame fades. Influence lasts. And the next chapter of his life would not just elevate his career. It would shift culture itself. Every movement reaches a point where it must either repeat itself or risk everything. For him, that moment came when the group ended. The Lockers had taken street dance as far as it had ever gone. Television, tours, global visibility. But something was missing. Control. As long as others shaped the narrative, the culture remained fragile. Visible, but replaceable. Popular, but misunderstood. So when the group fractured, he did not chase nostalgia. He walked forward. He began working alone, choreographing, performing, learning how the industry actually functioned. Behind the lights, behind the contracts. Around this time, he crossed paths with a younger dancer who reminded him of himself. Hungry, focused, determined to stay out of trouble. Michael Chambers did not come from privilege. He came from the same streets, the same choices. The connection was immediate. They spoke through movement, through rhythm, through discipline. Together, they represented two generations of street dance, standing side by side. Then came the opportunity that no one fully understood at first. A project meant to document breakdancing. Not dramatize it, not sanitize it, just show it as it was. The idea grew quickly, too quickly to stay small. Hollywood stepped in. What followed was a gamble. A film inspired by street culture, created by people who lived it, but funded by those who did not fully understand it. No guarantees, no precedent. When he was asked to step in front of the camera, the risk doubled. He was not an actor, but he knew the character. Because the character was real, the streets had already taught him how to play that role. Breakin was filmed fast, with little room for hesitation. Most of the dancers wore their own clothes. They moved the way they always had. Nothing was softened. What appeared on screen felt raw, unpolished, honest. And that honesty hit America like electricity. Audiences did not see choreography. They saw possibility. The film did something no one expected. It unified. Black, Latino, white, different backgrounds, same rhythm. Breakdancing was no longer dismissed as noise. It became conversation. The box office numbers surprised everyone. But the cultural shift mattered more. Suddenly, street dance had leverage. Doors opened. Music videos, tours. Major artists wanted authenticity, not imitation. That single decision to bet on truth over comfort changed everything. He had carried street culture into the mainstream without losing its soul. And now, the industry was listening. After the film, the question was no longer whether street dance belonged. It was who would shape what it became. America responded first. Music videos changed almost overnight. Dance was no longer decoration. It became narrative. Major artists wanted movement that felt real, not borrowed. And he was the one they called. Lionel Richie wanted celebration to feel organic. Street dancers filled the frame, not as extras, but as energy. The visuals traveled far beyond American borders. Then came Shaka Khan. Then world tours. Then audiences who did not know the history, but felt the power. Soon, the culture reached its most demanding stage. Michael Jackson understood precision better than anyone alive. Every move had to mean something. Every pause had to land. Street dance adapted without losing its edge. Then there was Madonna. She recognized cultural shifts before most executives did. On her tours, street dance stood beside pop spectacle. Not hidden, not softened. Hip-hop had entered the system. But the influence did not stop with fame. He traveled constantly, teaching dancers who had never seen the streets that created the movement. New York, Paris, Berlin, Tokyo. Street dance became language, then discipline, then curriculum. To protect the culture, he returned to school. At the American Film Institute, he studied directing, not to reinvent himself, but to control perspective, because he understood something deeply American. If you do not tell your own story, someone else will rewrite it. By the time hip-hop reached award shows, Broadway, and global television, the groundwork had already been laid. Quietly, relentlessly. What the world saw as overnight success was decades of unseen work. Street dance did not go global by accident. It traveled because someone carried it carefully, and the culture remembered who opened the door. In the end, there was no stage, no crowd counting the beats, no final pose. In late December of 2020, Adolfo Quiñones, Shabba-Doo, was found unresponsive in his home. Just a day earlier, he had shared that he was feeling better, that the worst had passed. For many, the news felt unreal, because people like him always seem permanent, as if movement itself could protect them. The official cause was heart disease, clogged arteries, a quiet ending for a man whose life had been anything but quiet. He was 65 years old, an age where stories are usually retold, not cut short. His passing came during a year already heavy with loss. Pioneers, builders, voices that shaped generations. One by one, the architects of culture were leaving. Yet what he built never stopped moving. Every time a dancer freezes mid-step, every time a battle replaces a fight, every time rhythm becomes a way out instead of a way down, his influence remains. He proved that street dance was not chaos. It was structure, not rebellion without purpose, but expression with discipline. Long before social media, before dance competitions and global tours, he showed America something it was not ready to see. That brilliance often begins far from approval, and that culture does not need permission to exist. He did not chase trends. He protected roots. He understood that movements fade when their stories are forgotten. So he taught. He mentored. He studied. He documented. Today, many people know the moves. Fewer know the names. And even fewer understand the risks it took to carry street culture into the light without letting it be erased. That is why remembering matters. If this story brought you back to a moment when music filled the room and the floor became a stage, share that memory. If you practiced these steps when no one was watching, say so. And if you believe culture should honor its builders, stay connected. Some legacies are not written in books. They live in motion. And as long as the music plays, he is still there.